Alright, so we're going to make a stretcher board today, a coon stretcher. You know, I've had a lot of requests if I could show making a stretcher board. And, you know, I know there's a lot of younger subscribers asking me these questions. And so I thought instead of just going ahead and making a stretcher, you know, with a planer and a router and table saw, you know, all those, more expensive tools, I thought I'd just go ahead and go down and break it down, and we're going to use just strictly real simple tools on this video. So you know, the younger viewers here that you know, might not have a big inventory of tools could use these tools. I've tried to go through and pick just simple tools that most every household would have, or very inexpensive tools, you know, that one could acquire to make this. And then of course, you know, if you guys have you know, planers and routers and table saws and stuff, then, you know, through this video you'll definitely be able to see where you can use those such tools, you know, to save yourself some time. But anyway, I'm gonna focus this just on simple tools, and talk a little bit about boards and everything else, and hopefully this will help the younger viewers, you know, kind of get started, or even a guy that, you know, is on a tight budget, you know, get started going. So anyway, we'll show you the tools here I've got set out, you know, and then we'll just get started making a board. All right, so first things first, we need to have the proper board width. We're going to make a coon stretcher here. Now you can get on NAFA's website and get all the dimensions for any type of critter. We're going to make a coon board. I think that's the most popular. It's what I've had the most requests for. So anyway, since we're using simple tools and we don't have a planer, a electric planer at our disposal, we're going to go ahead and we're going to choose the thinnest board we can buy. Now this is one of my stretchers. This is the ones I use you know, every year, and these are made out of basswood. I made these all, and basswood is I know hard to find for some people. You know, it's not readily available. I had to look long and hard to find the planks to make these. But anyway, basswood's about the nicest wood if you can find it, just for the simple fact it's very soft, it's easy to put pins in and such, and there's very few knots in it. But for this video, we're going to go ahead and we're going to use pine. You know, pine is about the most readily available wooden board out there. If you can get your hands on some cedar, cedar's real nice too. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to use pine. Now, with this raccoon board, you know, I get a lot of questions about widths at the base. Now, this board here is spec'd to North Central coons, and that's, you know, a vast majority of the coons caught will fit on this board, no problem. This board is 7.5 inches at this very end. Now, that being said, this board I've got in front of me is a dimensional 1x8. Now, you know, of course, that would be 7.25 inches. Now, what you have to understand with these boards is the 7.5 inches is at the very bottom of this board. The very bottom. Okay. This is a 48-inch board. So how many coons are you actually catching a year where the base of the tail is down to 48 inches? The answer is not very many. So what you want to look at is where the majority of your coons are going to land. Now, NAFA specs show 7 inches wide at 30 inches of length. Now that falls between the 2X and the 3X coons. That's the majority of the coons. You know, even at 4X, which, you know, that's a pretty good coon, the board is only 7.25 inches wide, which is the width of a dimensional 1x8. So 1x8 will work fine for using coons. You know, if you catch a coon that's over 4X, you know, I put up a couple 5X, several 4X every year, never had any problems. You know, the thickness of the fur will usually you know, get the width. So with that being said, we've chose just a simple pine 1x8. I like my boards being 4 foot, and basically what that is if you get a 4XL coon on this board, you still have plenty of room to pin the tail. You know, it's a personal preference. If you want to make them 42, make them 42. But at any rate, our big number is right here at 30 inches on a board. So enough about boards. Let's talk about the tools needed. I have a sawhorse here to do our planing on. We have some type of straight edge. I've laid out just a couple here. You know, it could be a level, a actual T-square, a straight edge of some sort. You know, just give you guys an idea. We need a couple of different clamps, whether it be C-clamps, you know, adjustable clamps, something to clamp our work to our sawhorse. We're gonna need a saw at some point. You know, if you're buying an 8-foot board, you know, you can cut it in half, you know, get 2 boards out of it. So, you know, either just a simple circular saw or a hand saw will even work. We need a tape measure, a pencil, some sandpaper is very nice, or even if you have like an orbital sander or some sort of mechanical sander. And then whenever we're going to do this board, and with the simple tools, the biggest thing here is just a hand planer. Now if you don't have one of these, I went ahead and chose this tool just because it's about the cheapest. You can pick these things up for around 20 bucks, and you know, that's what we're going to do all our planing with. It's all going to be by hand. If you have a electric planer, that's great, but like I said, I'm going to focus this video on simple tools. Now then, while we're going to plane this board down, a dimensional 1x8 3/4 inches thick, and we try to get our boards as thin as possible. 1/2 inch is a pretty good starting point. If you go much thinner than 1/2 inch, I'm talking right there, by the time you put the coon on the board and he starts to dry, it has a tendency for your board to warp. So you know, you can go 3/8 on muskrat boards, you know, or something shorter, but on coon boards I like to go 1/2 inch. Now if you can't get a planer, or you have no way to plane this board down, by all means don't worry about it. A 3/4 inch wide board will work. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. What happens is with your thicker board, you end up losing length because you're taking up space with your thickness of your board. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. The pelt looks real nice and full, but like I said, for coons especially, length is more important than width. So we're going to try to plane this board down as thin as we can. So like I said, we're just going to use this hand planer here, simple tools only. I'm going to get this board clamped to my sawhorse and start planing. We're going to plane the whole thing down first, and then we're going to draw out our board. It doesn't take as long as what you think, guys, to take a 1/4 inch off of a board with a good hand planer. I've already got my board cut. It's 4 foot in length, so we'll get it clamped up and we'll start planing. So I'm about done with this board here, but I just wanted to share with you how I get it nice and flat. You can see here I've just taken a level, and I start with my edges first, and you know, I'm shooting for a 1/2 inch. So as soon as I get both my edges at a 1/2 inch, then I'll just put a straight edge or a level on the board and slide it down. You can see there's absolutely no gap under that level. You know, if I'd have a high spot, the level would rise up and rock. Now as I work my way down here, you can see right there, now I've got my edges, you know, right at a 1/2 inch on each side, but now looking underneath that level, see how that level rocks right there? Right in through here is a high spot. So I just need to concentrate on taking that high spot out, and then see now right there, now that level, it doesn't rock, so we know we're pretty close, and we'll move on down and it looks pretty good. So we're just gonna clean up just a little bit here, and then we'll be ready. But that's just a little trick to make sure you keep everything straight.
Okay, so there's our board, and you can see it's planed down real nice. It's real flat all the way across. Took a 1/4 inch off of it, so now it's a 1/2 inch all the way through. So you know, just for you guys wondering, I timed myself. You know, you can see all the shavings on the ground. Took me 16 minutes, and you know, I went ahead and I cleaned up the other side of it. It's perfect all the way across. You know, so I mean, it's not like you spend a day doing this with the hand planer. You know, once you get a good rhythm and understand how the tool works, it goes really quick. You know, I mean, I made my first 3 dozen coon boards with a hand planer. You know, so I mean, it's really not that big of an undertaking. So anyway, let's get started with tracing out the pattern for the board. Now, I've taken one of my boards and I went ahead and I've wrote down the critical measurements. I like a flat spot in my board. Some just completely come to the straight round, but I like to have that little flat spot, and it kind of gives an area for the nose to set on. So that area there is 3/4 of an inch wide, and then we come down to this mark here, and that's 5.5 inches down from the top, and the width is 4.5 inches. At 11 inches, we're 6 inches wide. At 16 inches, we're 6 5/8 inches wide, and then all the way down here at 30 inches, we're 7 inches wide. And you know, you can see, if I lay the board down, you can see the taper it has there. You know, it's once you get to this point right here, it pretty much straightens out. You know, you don't lose too much. You know, 5/8, you only have a little over 1/4 inch. So in 14 inches. So I mean, it straightens out real nice. Now, if by some chance you can get a hold of a pattern, that's great. You know, you can simply just make your first one and trace it. But since we're kind of going for the younger guys here, we're gonna do it just strictly off measurements. I'll put these measurements right here in the description below, so then that way you know, you don't have to go back through and watch the whole video to get the measurements. So to start off with here, we'll just take a square and a pencil, and we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna find our center. So we're 7 1/4, so we're gonna be 3 5/8. And then we're just gonna measure 3/8 inch over from that. On each side. And that will give us our 3/4 inch nose. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and come down and we're gonna mark at 5.5 inches. We're going to mark at 11 inches. We're going to mark at 16 inches. We're going to mark at 30 inches. And then with this being a 7 1/4 inch board, you know, after 30 inches, we're just going to let the board go. So now we've got it marked. Now we're going to come down to the very bottom of the board, 7 1/4 inches again, you know, so we're going to go 3 5/8 inches. Take our straight edge of some sort. You know, if you don't have a big long straight edge, you know, just measure 3 5/8 in the center, or you know how long your straight edge is, and then that'll allow you to run a straight edge. Okay, so there's our board split in half. Now, we have our mark right here. If you want to, just to help you, you know, draw it across your line with a square. Not necessary, but okay. So our first mark here is it's at 5.5 inches. It's 4.5 inches wide. So all you're gonna do is take and measure 2.25 inches over from each side and put a mark. We're gonna come down to 11 inches, and that's 6 inches. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put a mark at 3 inches on each side of our line. We're going to come down to our 16-inch mark, and that is 6 5/8. So we're gonna go 3 3/16, and we're gonna measure that off. And we're gonna come down to 7 inches at 30 inches, and we'll just give a 3.5 inch mark, and you know you're only going to have an 1/8 inch of board left at that point, so you know it doesn't have to be super scientific. All right, now you can see we've got a nice pattern laid out. So this is where our straight edge comes into place. We're just going to take our straight edge and we're going to go right to that point that we marked. We're going to come down off of that point. We're going to mark again. Come down to this point. And at this point, if you have a long enough straight edge, you can hit all three at once. We're going to do the same here. Come to the first point. Put a line. Come to the second point. Draw a line, and then we can come to this third point and we can hit all three. And like I said, from this point on, it's just going to taper on down. So now if that shows up in the camera, you can see that we've got our pattern lined out. Now, you can see I've got corners here. You know, it doesn't look exactly as nice and round, but those corners there will just take off after we cut the pattern out. You know, it'll just be, you know, you're gonna have to have some sort of just flare. You can use sandpaper or your hand planer tool. Now, this is time to cut it out. So we can either use our hand saw or, you know, circular saw. If you have a jigsaw even, that works out well too. Just for time, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna clamp this board down, and I'm gonna just go ahead and cut it with my little circular saw. So we'll get set up and do that. All right, so like I said, any manner of saw will work. I'm gonna go ahead and use just my little battery-powered circular saw. If you have a big one, you know, you can use that to anything. But we're just gonna start, and I like to start at this end because with this 7 1/4 inch board, you can just come in and follow that line right up, and then you don't have to mess with any of this. And if you come this way, you more times than not you end up with kind of an edge right there that you have to knock off and make a curve. It's just easier to come in this way. Like I said, if you have to use a handsaw, use a handsaw. You know, it's cutting straight lines, so it's no big deal. So we're gonna get started here. Okay, now then, you can see we got it all cut out. It's nice and uniform, but now we've got some edges here we have to do something with. So if you got big bulky edges, just take your hand planer. If you just need to kind of smooth them out, take sandpaper. Either way, roll them edges down, and you can see, I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect. You just want it to get to flow, you know. You can see on this board right here, just knock that little edge off. And then finally, you know, instead of, if you don't have a router, of course, we're using simple tools. We'll need to roll this edge, and this is pretty critical, because if you have just a straight square edge, it's real hard to pull the pelt off of. You know, this rounded edge, it makes the pelt slide off real nice and neat. So you can either take your planer tool, a utility knife works fairly well, just to knock that edge off, and then use sandpaper to roll it off. You know, just a multitude of different tools will work, but our whole point is to get that nice rolled edge. So we're gonna go ahead and we're take our hand planer, we're gonna knock off these corners, and then move on from there. Alright, so we got our planer, and we got the edges knocked down. So we're just gonna go ahead and take some sandpaper here, and we're just gonna be working that rolled edge. And you can see how well this board's coming out. Looks like a coon board. And you know, it didn't take much time at all. And it didn't take any power tools. So, you know, finally, after we get this thing done, we'll go ahead, and I just like to mark all my boards with sizes. Alright guys, so just finishing up this board here, got it all sanded, and put the finishing touches on it here. Just go ahead and we'll put all our sizes. You know, it's real nice to be able to pin across the nice line. Board turned out good. Like I said, all said and done, guys, I can do one of these boards in about a half hour from start to finish. So it's not like you've got to dedicate a ton of time. You know, do a couple every night for 2 weeks, and you've got a couple dozen coon boards. And you know, it feels good to do everything by yourself. You know, like I said, here's the basswood stretcher. You know, they turned out real nice. You can tell the thickness is just perfect there. You know, I mean, it's not that hard, and it doesn't take a ton of tools. So anyway, guys, I hope that shed some light on making your own wood stretchers. Any questions, you know, feel free to ask. I'll get right back with you. Any other recommendations you guys have for videos on boards? I know this was a big one, and I've been putting it off, but anyway, been a fun project. Like I said, I haven't made boards in a few years, so anyway, there it is. Thanks for watching, guys, and till next time.